Hi, everybody. Thanks again for watching the From the Cheat Seats video, episode 3, Super Bowl predictions with Charlie and Max. If you want to see more information about our content, click the link in the description. That leads you to our Instagram and Twitter page. And join us next Tuesday as Charles Campbell and I discuss the Jimmy Butler Warriors trade and the rest of the trades that have happened before the NBA deadline and our top 10. So tune in next time. In the 18 years of my life, I haven't seen a Super Bowl game that people have wanted to watch less than the Chiefs and the Eagles. But before we get into our thoughts about the Super Bowl, let's discuss the most recent occurrence. Josh Allen and his MVP. Max, what are your thoughts?
I think it's something that any of us really could have predicted. I think a lot of people knew the favorite going into that was Lamar Jackson, especially considering the year he had and the stats. But from what we've seen these past couple years, especially last year when we see it MVP in which Lamar won, it's not about stats anymore. And I think we could have known this for a long time because if it was about stats, if it was about how good a player actually was, it wouldn't be strictly a quarterback award. You know what I mean? We would see guys in the past like. Um, we might have seen TJ Watt win it one year. We might have seen Cooper Kupp win it in his year. We might have seen Michael Thomas win it in 2019. But I think as we're seeing with it as a quarterback award, it's not about your stats. Last year we would have seen, if it was about stats, we would have seen Dak Prescott or Christian McCaffrey win. But because Lamar Jackson won, we know it's not, about stats, like I'm saying. So this year with Josh Allen, we see a guy who's really brought his team forward through over the course of his career, and he's got it to kind of the peak point we're at now. He still is not able to win a Super Bowl, but although Lamar had better stats this year, we look at Josh Allen as a guy who had more team success and team wins, which we're seeing is really playing into MVPs these days. Is team win is really the formula now is a quarterback whose team is a lot of wins, is a playoff team, and he is putting himself out there as the most responsible. Because if we just said best QB on a team with a bunch of wins, it'd go to Mahomes every year. The reason it's not Mahomes is because we don't single out Mahomes as the only good player on the Chiefs. We don't see him as the one carrying. We don't single out Josh Allen as the only good player on the Bills either, but we single him out as the one truly setting apart himself from the rest of the team. That brings him to this point. And to say that point, I mean, can you name another player on the Bills you would hold in the same tier as Josh Allen?
No, I cannot.
Exactly. But with the Chiefs, you consider Travis Kelce, Chris Jones. Some might say Nick Bolton. I know you love Nick Bolton. Um, and it really just comes down to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I thought Lamar should have won it based on stats, but I understand why Josh Allen won it. And another thing is, people totally forget Lamar had like 4 3 all pros on his team. And not just that, like he was 12-5. Allen had virtually a ragtag receiving core, nothing to work with, and they went 13-4. Not only that, Josh Allen had a historic 2-game run. I don't think that gets talked about enough, where he had against the Rams in their 44-42 loss, he had 3 passing touchdowns and 3 rushing touchdowns. That is the first time in NFL history that anybody's ever had that type of stat. And not only that, he recorded another stat like that a week later against San Francisco in the 35-10 win when he passed for 2 touchdowns, rushed for 1 touchdown, and caught a touchdown from a pass by Amari Cooper. Now, talk about versatility. Lamar has to put on the Superman cape when nobody's doing their job. Josh Allen has to do it all the time, and he came out on top in the playoffs too. So, besides MVP, I think obviously great award, but it's become best quarterback award, kind of like you've said in a way. So let's move on to the Super Bowl and hear what I think are the key factors for me, at least. The Eagles' offensive line. Can they dominate early? Can they push Chris Jones and the Chiefs' defensive line around and allow open lanes for Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley? Because really, the formula for the Eagles to win the game is to run the ball. Run the freaking ball with Saquon Barkley. And another factor that I think contributes, and this is a small detail, but I think it's who controls the ball better after halftime. Now, NFL teams are 36-8 in the Super Bowl when they're leading at halftime. That's an 81.8% chance of winning the Super Bowl if you're leading. But 3 of those 8 losses by the teams that led at halftime, 3 of them were Patrick Mahomes and 5 of them were Tom Brady. And another factor, Nick Bolton if the Chiefs want to win this game, he has to be on his A game. He has to stop the best running back in the NFL right now. The closest player who I think to like Adrian Peterson had that burst back in 2012. This is the closest player I've seen since then. I know Derrick Henry, but he's a vintage running back. Saquon Barkley and Adrian Peterson were just flat out explosive. And that's what Nick Bolton needs to do. He needs to stop a versatile, explosive running back. And next, the Chiefs, they need to get their run game going. Isaiah Pacheco is coming off of a few injuries this season. He's had a sort of a slump after this is his junior year of NFL, basically. And Kareem Hunt was traded for near midseason. Good addition to the Chiefs, I think. 727 yards rushing and 6 touchdowns. But it's going to be in this game with decides, hey, was it worth going out and getting him for that trade? And then five is the X factor. 5 is the most important variable of the game. Patrick Mahomes. He's had 3 Super Bowl game-winning or ceiling drives or tying, and he's 3-0 in all of them. That's what I think of that. He is going to be the ultimate X factor in this Super Bowl. Max, what do you think the key factors in this Super Bowl are?
I mean, I think you covered a lot of great points there. I think when you're really looking at it, talking about how are these teams going to win, I think one thing that you really hammered on in the beginning was the Eagles' offensive line. We've seen what they can do and what they can help Saquon do, winning Offensive Player of the Year last night. So I think a key there would absolutely be Chris Jones. 3 years ago, that's a top 5 player in the NFL at the performance he's in, finalist for Defensive Player of the Year. Coming into this year, we've seen him have issues, injury. I saw just the other day someone compare him as the Anthony Davis in the Anthony Davis trade. It was like someone said it's like if you trade Joe Burrow for Chris Jones. So I think we've seen Chris Jones kind of in a decline. So if he can bring back the Super Bowl performance he's had in the past, especially against an offensive line that, although one of the best in the league, gets worse as you go inside. You know, the tackles, best players on the line, as you go inside, you get younger, you get less experienced, especially with the recent retiring of Jason Kelce. Chris Jones has to get in there and dominate.
All right. Is that your own key factor?
I think I might have more. I think when you're really looking at it as well, there's a lot of young players that are in this game and a lot of young stars and rising stars. And I think on a different side, the other defensive side with the Eagles, Cooper DeJean is huge. One of the best slot corners in the NFL after 1 year. He's going to be huge, and they have to rely on him to be able to cover the fast wide receivers that the Chiefs possess. When you're talking whether it's Marquise Brown or Rashee Rice, you know what I mean? And Cooper DeJean really has to hone in on that. I think he's going to be huge. And I think one guy who we're not talking about enough, and I mean, it's truly incredible what Zach Bond has been able to do this year, especially in kind of starting a breakout of a career. I know the NFL doesn't have a Breakout Player of the Year award, but I think without a doubt he'd be the favorite and win it most likely.
Real quick, Colin Cowherd did a list of top 10 players in the Super Bowl. Zach Bond wasn't on there.
He was, dude. I don't want to throw shade at Colin Cowherd. I can't. But yeah, I think Zach Bond is truly someone that we need to be looking at, not just as an X factor per se in this game, but as a potential Super Bowl MVP if the Eagles take a win out of this thing.
Really?
Absolutely. I think if the Eagles win, I would not be shocked if Zach Bond comes out with an MVP award.
That's a pretty impressive take. I would hop on board with that. But Max, considering your love for the Eagles defense right now, what's your prediction for the overall game? How do you think first half, second half? What is your prediction score wise? What do you think? How do you think it's going to play out?
Yeah. I think it's hard to kind of go, and sort of a play-by-play analysis per se, but I think if we're really looking at it, personally, I think the Eagles come out with this one. I think the way they do that is first quarter establish the run. That's a no-brainer. Every NFL team's going to do that in every game these days. I think it's just it's like an axiom at this point. You're going to say you get into the game, you're going to establish run. You're going to do that when you have the best running back in the league and the best offensive line in the league. So I think coming out of the gate, it's going to be at least the second quarter, late in the second quarter, until you see any idea of a passing touchdown from the Eagles. It's going to be a Saquon heavy game from the start, making sure that the Chiefs cannot play guessing with what play they're going to run. And I mean, that's just basic football to that point. I'm not really adding anything there, but I think we're going to see a lot of Saquon running. If we're talking from a betting perspective, I would bet my life savings on Saquon over 1.5 touchdowns. I think he gets at least 2.
Woohoo, okay.
Yeah.
Super Bowl MVP question mark?
I think it's possible. Yeah. I know I've already said Zach Bond. I think Saquon and Zach Bond would be my 2 favorites for Super Bowl MVP if we're looking at an Eagles victory. And I think when we get out of that, obviously the Chiefs are favored for the Super Bowl again from a betting perspective, but I think the Eagles come out of this one just off pure strength alone. I think they're fueled with the fire of the fact that no one wants to see it a three-peat from the Chiefs, except for you because you're a Chiefs fan. But I genuinely think the Eagles will come out of this successful. I think it's going to be a close game, probably somewhere in a both scoring 30 points range. We've seen that a lot of Super Bowls in the past, and I think that's a trend we're going to keep seeing. Is just a not a high scoring but a medium scoring game because of pure offensive fire and the occasional defensive touchdown. You know, you're going to see some. I honestly I would not be shocked if you wanted to put a little money again from a betting perspective on Jalen Hurts no passing touchdown. I think the Eagles are going to be running out of that
That's
game.
crazy. With A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert?
I think if Jalen Hurts scores a touchdown, it's going to be a rushing touchdown. I think the Eagles are going to exploit what they can do best. We know this Chiefs defense. A lot of people don't talk about it enough, but the Chiefs defense really is a huge part of their team. It's not just an offensive team. Run defense is one of the best in the leagues. I think if anyone is going to exploit that, it's going to be Eagles doing what they do best, and that is running the football.
So I totally get where you're coming from that, and you're right. You're right. I am a Chiefs fan, but when it comes to stuff like this, I have to speak from a non-biased perspective. And he already gave the scenario on the Eagles winning. I think if the Chiefs win, it's going to be a case where they get they kick off and they'll get it after halftime, and the Eagles will march down. They'll get 3 field goals because they're going to do exactly what Max said. I think they would run the ball straight from the start, not hold back. And I think they kick 2 field goals to make it a 6-0 lead. And then I think the Chiefs, they have a big play to either Hollywood Brown or DeAndre Hopkins. Unfortunately, Rashee Rice being gone kind of hampers the passing.
He is gone. I was just Googling that because I realized I mentioned him earlier, and I was like, dude.
I was going to point it out.
I mentioned it earlier, and I was like, half of me is like incredibly sure that he's just not playing. And it came out of my mouth too fast. You can see it on my computer. I was just checking, like, isn't Rashee Rice out? So yeah, now I look like an idiot. But continue. Yeah.
So I think the Chiefs will get a big play, and then I think they're going to hand it off to Kareem Hunt for a touchdown, and then they're going to be aggressive and try and go for 2, but they'll miss it and tie it at 6. And then I think after that, the Eagles, the offensive line, going to get going. They're going to get that up tempo, and they're going to go on a 15-3 run. And they'll take a 14-9 lead at half, I think, after getting a touchdown and a 2-point conversion, and the Chiefs kicking a field goal. And afterward, the Chiefs have to punt it after coming out from the first half out of the locker room. And then the Eagles, they'll get a play. And I think it'll be a Saquon rushing touchdown. They'll take a 21-9 lead. Afterwards, after the third and the fourth, I think we'll see the Chiefs go for a touchdown with about 12, 11 minutes remaining. And then they'll go for a 2-point conversion and make it 21-17. And in doing so, they'll force a turnover from the Eagles. If you recall, there was that Nick Bolton fumble that they scored off of in the Super Bowl 57. And I think something like that might happen, and they'll get it at the 43, 40-yard line, and then it'll be one of those scenarios where they accidentally take a sack because the Eagles' defensive line, they're going to chase Mahomes down like they've never chased anything in their life. And the Chiefs will have to kick a field goal and make it 21-20. They'll cut the deficit. And then with about 5 minutes to go, I think the Eagles getting a situation where they've been running all game. They're forcing Jalen Hurts to go out of shotgun and pass instead of play action. And they'll be forced to punt because the Chiefs defense will come, like they always do, will come up clutch within 5 minutes to go. And I think Chiefs will march down the field, and you're going to see a lot of Patrick Mahomes rushes because he always cuts those loose within the final minutes of the game. And then they're going to probably get a touchdown, maybe a short touchdown pass. Could be Travis Kelce. Could be Hollywood Brown end around for all I know. And then they're going to try and go for 2, but they fail, make it 26-21. And as always, Chiefs Super Bowls end with some sort of controversy. And I think it'll be 26-21, and the Eagles will have about 2:40 left in the game to go make a game-winning touchdown. But then they'll fail on the drive, and the Chiefs will win the Super Bowl 26-21.
Sounds like an entertaining game to me. I'd be pumped.
Honestly. So I highly recommend for all of you out there when making these Super Bowl predictions, try not to consider a lot of ref bias because I may be a Chiefs fan, but even if I was a non-Chiefs fan, I've heard people say this, give the Chiefs their flowers. They've done some incredible stuff these past few years, and same with the Eagles. These two franchises, they're some of the best of recent years. You've seen this is the Eagles' third appearance in what, 7-8
7
years?
years.
Yeah,
7 years.
that's good stuff right there. Them, the LA Rams and the Chiefs. Those are some teams that are going to impact the future. So that's all we have here today.
Well, before we go, I wanted to ask if you had anything else about the awards last night. Any hot takes, anything?
Hot take wise, I think I predicted almost every award down to the wire. I think Pat Surtain gets argued against too much.
Mhm.
I heard a lot of people talk about Trey Hendrickson should have won Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
But look at that Bengals roster as a whole. He may have gotten all those sacks, but they gave up at least 30 points a game, 7, 8 times, something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, and also I think with Pat Surtain, it's crazy what you can, the impact he had on bringing a Broncos team that looked like that to the playoffs.
That's what I think, and I also think Bo Nix is a quarterback. Bo Nix, definitely. I don't know if he finished second up or runner up in Rookie of the Year, but. Speaking of NFL honors, what do you think about Eli Manning getting snubbed from the Hall of Fame?
I think it's incredibly valid. What side are you on of that? Eli Manning.
I think the players that got in over him, I think they're well deserving of it. I would have put them in maybe, but I do think 2 Super Bowl MVPs and 2 Super Bowl wins over Tom Brady of all players should at least be considered.
That's fair. The thing with Eli Manning, you've got 2 Super Bowl MVPs, right? 2 Super Bowls, incredibly valid. And this is going to be a similar scenario when we get into discussions of Matt Ryan and Phillip Rivers in the years to come. But with Eli Manning, you're looking at a guy who's got 0 All-Pros, 4 Pro Bowls, and a worse career passer rating than Daniel Jones. Around 500 his entire career. You take out those 2 Super Bowls, and I don't think anyone's looking at that man as a Hall of Fame player.
It's actually 500 exactly. It's 117 and 117.
Exactly. There you go.
So I guess that question was answered for us. But
and kind of with that Hall of Fame, I'll tell you who I would have put in. I like that we're seeing more, we're getting stricter on who's getting let into the Hall of Fame because we only had 4 inductions this year as opposed to past years where we've had 5, 6, 7. I would have put in Antonio Gates. Obviously, we have a little bias being a Chargers fan, but I think he should have been a first ballot last year. I like him in this year.
I like him in this year too. He is the all-time. For those of you who don't know, he's the all-time receiving touchdowns leader for tight ends in the regular season, and I think he did a fantastic job along with Phillip Rivers
and all that after being a basketball player in college and going undrafted into the NFL. He just woke up and was like, "Yeah, I want to play football." Into the NFL one day.
That describes so many players, man.
I know, dude. And so I would have put him in last year, but I think there's one player this year who truly deserved to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and that was Luke Kuechly. I think a lot of people talk about him as short career, didn't play enough, all that. I think Luke Kuechly should have been in the Hall of Fame this year.
Definitely, he was. People talked about Cam Newton leading the Panthers to the playoffs. A lot of it was Luke Kuechly, and who was the other linebacker in that field with him?
In the Panthers?
Yeah.
Was it Shaq Thompson?
I think
Thomas
so.
Davis.
Thomas Davis.
Yeah.
It was Luke Kuechly and Thomas Davis. Luke Kuechly, I believe he's led the league in tackles 5 times. Impressive. He's gotten over 130 at least 3 times.
So, and not a Hall of Fame factor, but he was the record holder for college football tackles as well.
That should settle it for you. I mean,
he's an all-time player.
Best tackler besides Ray Lewis probably ever.
And I think just last touch on the Hall of Fame class, I think they need to hurry up and put Reggie Wayne and Torrey Holt in the Hall of Fame. I think it's great this year that we got to see an old guy like Eric Allen get in. Jared Allen, he should have been in a while ago. It's weird that they're waiting on him as well. Sterling Sharp's amazing. I'm glad they got him in. They're showing that injuries do not define a player with Sterling Sharp. That being said, Reggie Wayne and Torrey Holt have been outside of this for too long. I think a lot of people look at them, and for both players, for Reggie Wayne, they're like, oh, could he have done that without Marvin Harrison and Peyton Manning?
for Torrey Holt. They're like,
Greatest show on turf.
could he have done that without Kurt Warner and Isaac Bruce and Marshall Faulk? And I think there's a lot of that goes into it. But I think both of those players need to go ahead and get in for the impact they left on the league, showing how important it can be to have a well-rounded team. You cannot win anymore without a good wide receiver core. It's something that's been huge to every team the last few years. Maybe it'll give you a little foreshadowing on the Super Bowl when you see a team that you compare, Hollywood Brown and DeAndre Hopkins to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith.
And I think really when you were talking about the Eagles team winning, I would think if they did win, it would be a case where a few minutes left. Like, I know this is going back to predictions, but it would be they would have the ball with about 3 minutes remaining, and the Chiefs would be trying to force a turnover. It would be like 2nd and 6, and you'd expect them to hand it off to Saquon. But I think really they'd pass it to A.J. Brown. If you recall Jeremiah Smith's catch in the national championship against Notre Dame, I think it would be like that type of deal, and they'd get a game-sealing field goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for listening into the podcast today. If you repost this on Instagram or YouTube or anything, we'll give you a shout out next episode. So till then, this is Charlie Jimenez, and
Max Tomlinson.
we'll see y'all later.
Thank you very much.
Hi everybody, thanks again for watching the From the Cheat Seats video, episode 3, Super Bowl predictions with Charlie and Max. If you want to see more information about our content, click the link in the description. That leads you to our Instagram and Twitter page. And join us next Tuesday as Charles Campbell and I discuss the Jimmy Butler Warriors trade and the rest of the trades that have happened before the NBA deadline and our top 10. Tune in next time.